and this is my new show, Conversations with Friends, where I have amazing, real people that are also my friends talking about all the extraordinary things that they're doing. So today I have my beautiful friend, Marsha Pacificar. Did I get that right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. She's an astrologer as well as a sound healer and all sorts of other amazing things. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit about yourself, Marsha. What do you do and what are you offering at this moment?
Mm, Thank you so much. Thanks for the intro. Yes, I do all things connected to restorative wellness, which does include sound bath meditations, self-care gatherings, astrology, tarot. It all comes back to the intuitive art of it all. And I think this day and age, it's so important to have the tools to bring us back to ourselves since everything is very, I don't know, I guess we're hyper aware. We always have tech in our hands, and it really takes a more concerted effort these days to come back to ourselves, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm talking about, Megan.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so tell us about like why restorative wellness is so important right now. You talked about the tech, but I'd love to just hear like how does someone disconnect if they always have that phone in their hand?
Yeah, I think just as of late, I've been really interested in reflecting on the idea of fragmented focus. I saw a TED Talk just recently on how fragmented focus can really get to our brain and how it works. If we are in a space where we're not in the practice of being fully focus into what we're supposed to be focused on at hand, it can take away the quality of our present moment, our connection with others, or even our thought process. If there's all these things happening, our brain is like, okay, that's cool. What's next? And then I find it a bit challenging to just get into the full connectedness, vibration of the moment when it's fragmented. And I think now more than ever, we kind of live in that energy collectively unless we're really committing to the consistency of protecting our minds. So that's just something that I've been really thinking about lately.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. What you said about like the fragmented consciousness, I feel like is so uh it's just so present right now in what we're all doing. And I feel like it's become like the norm to not be present and to be thinking about the next thing or worrying about that thing. And, all of our power is in the present moment. So it's very, I like what you said because I feel like we have to actually practice or we have to make an
Yeah.
effort to step out of that
hmm
fragmentation.
Yes, and Megan, being a single mama and having that already attributes to the things that we focus on, right? Like you and I have the luxury of being the one for our kiddos. So that's already another space to have fragmented focus on top of all the other things. Like if you get a text and Arya's not with you, you're like, oh shoot, what's going on? Like it's like the first thing, right? So then how can we just continue to be in this space of present moment and calmness and grounding energy with the day to day of, I guess, all the tasks that need to get done. So I love what I do, and I love sharing insight with people um, in the arts of understanding there is an intuitive nature within all of us. And if we can tap into that with a practice, then we're able to move a little bit slower and a lot more grounded in the day to day. That's why I think astrology or tarot is so wonderful because it actually invites us to drop in to who we are and to things that we just don't normally think about. You know, in a given day, you're like, I got to do A, B, and C. But then how often do we put in our practice of, oh, how are you feeling today? You know, like, how do you feel? And where, where, where are you at emotionally or mentally, right? I think it's, I think it's something like when we're in the physical so much, it takes just added practice. And that's why I've been really enjoying the Tarot Collective that a friend and I are hosting, because we get together and it's a moment, you know, in the week, in the day, to just drop into our breath and look at these beautiful cards and see what symbolism is coming through to tap in. Yeah. Do you feel that way, Megan, when you do your tarot collectives and your teachings? Like what are the golden parts that come out of those experiences?
Yeah. Well, first you said so much, so many pearls of wisdom there. I'm just like, yes, that's true. And that's true. And I could go so many ways with that, but yeah, I definitely feel like what you said about like dropping in is an art. It really is. And I've actually been writing about that in my book this week because I'm working on the chapter about the root chakra, how it's like,
Mm,
yeah, how it's like we actually have to make it a luxury to do this, because the reason why we're so fragmented all of the time is because it's like this safety net where it's like, if I'm constantly planning or preparing, then I could think about every possible timeline that could happen and be ready for it, and then maybe I'll feel safe. But in
mm.
actuality, it's like, if we can slow down and become present here, everything's good here. So it's going to be good after this and after this. And so, yeah, I love, like you said, didn't we meet in a tarot class? Or no, it was astrology,
We
but
did.
tarot, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, just a side note, I met Marsha through one of our shared mentors, Dr. Craig. And yeah, I just remember being in that class, and like, it was like, no matter what was happening that week, like we all had that moment where not only were we talking about it, but we got to hear everybody else and like learn from everyone else. And I felt bad because I think there was one woman that always sat next to me, and like all of her cards were like always swords and like towers. And I'm like, dang, what's going on with that girl?
Well, you know what? I don't know, Megan. We might have been in a tarot collective together. I'm not sure because I remember when we were going on the Zoom calls, I'm like, why do I feel like I know Megan in some way? You know, we could have. We could have. Very well could have. What I loved about doing that in class formation was seeing everyone's cards continue to tell a story and continue to evolve as the weeks went on. Before tarot, I was definitely a natural skeptic. Like, okay, so you pull cards, but you can pull whatever cards you want, you know? Like, but after experiencing it with peers and understanding where they were in whatever chapter of their lives, and the cards inviting them to think more and to gain perspective on what they're going through. I felt like that was so powerful. It really inspired me to help other people learn how to get into a practice of connecting with their intuition, um, because it's so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I feel like you're right, where there's something about the tarot that's so amazing because it encompasses all of the experiences we go through as a human. And there's so much about like symbols. So it's like we can look at a picture, and when we see, like, for example, I pulled the Ace of Pentacles today, and it's like, if we just,
Ooh.
yeah, isn't that awesome?
I love that card.
Me too. I'm like, more pentacles, please. But yeah, it's like once you start to understand the symbology, like everything here is like a story and a story and a story. And then once you learn all of that, you can tell your own stories, and you can tell other people's stories, and you can see how this story unfolds. And so it's so fascinating.
That's actually Naima's favorite card. my 10-year-old daughter, I'm like, what is your favorite card? Just like the art of it. And that she loves that card
Oh,
because
that's
there's a floating cloud and the hand coming out of nowhere offering, thought provoking, like imagination and interest. I also think with the tarot, it's fascinating to see how there's this relationship of the artist and the mystic. Did you see Dior? They had this wonderful fashion show. I think it was last year and was all inspired by the tarot. And it was just beautiful. They had like a whole production of it. I am just like super amazed how it's still here, right? It's a mystery of like where it came from. It's 600 years old based on the first history of it, but also there is a mystery about it being connected to the I Ching or Tantra. And there's, and then like roots in Egypt, and then Italy was when it was first printed, like it's like, wow, it's touched so many different cultures throughout wars, throughout all kinds of things still here, and we still get to access it as a tool. So that has to mean something, right? And what I love about even understanding the archetypal symbols and messages of gods and goddess and things like that, those still exist today. Um, the fact that the playing cards you can buy at Target, they come in 4 different suits. That wouldn't be here if it weren't for the tarot. And I think that's just fantastic.
I love that so much. First of all, I'm not surprised that your Libra rising would bring a Dior together. It's so
Yes.
great. And then also, yeah, you're right. How it's like it's touched so many people, so many cultures, so many timelines, and it's still here because it's those same human experiences that we go through over and over. It might look different, it might be a different person, it might be a different setting, but like those lessons are always applicable, and that's what makes it so powerful. And I love how you shared too how you were initially a skeptic. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your spiritual journey. Did you feel like you were
Yeah.
always spiritual or always connected, or did
Oh
something
my gosh. Yeah, I'm like, okay, where do we start? Where do we start the story? Um, hmm. I think just when I look back to my childhood, I was always curious and I was always connected with a certain feeling or knowing of the unseen. But hmm, okay, I'm like, it's a Taurus moon today. My Chiron is in Taurus. So I've been feeling like uh, the energy of healing is like so open and clear to me. But in the very beginning, being Chiron and Taurus in the eighth house, there was a lot of loss in my life. Really close grandparents who I created strong relationships with, they passed. I even had a best friend in eighth grade. She passed away. So the idea of impermanence, it was real for me. It kind of put my focus on like, what does that all mean? And okay, like I still feel them. I still, know I'm guided and divinely protected by this thing that I can't see. What is it? So I think from an early age, I was always seeking an understanding of the things unseen, which is not something that was like the everyday conversation when your friends are talking about, video games or I don't know. I don't know what. Shopping. Like all those things were relevant in my childhood, but at the same time, I felt most clear and connected with my true self when I was getting lost in astrology books or metaphysics or anything that had to do with the occult, which it was a quiet journey as a child. I was raised in a very Catholic family, you know? So it was, but it's funny because coming from the ethnicity of being like first generation Filipino American, I had aunties and grandmas who are very Catholic, although they'd say, "We've got a friend and she's like a healer and she's gonna come over. We're gonna make you know, boil coconut milk into oil and do this healing massage," like, so I'm like, oh, so that from where I am now, I'm like, wow, that kind of sounds like Reiki or body work or just like moving stagnation through your body. But then, so I got a view of both spaces, but never really felt like I could immerse myself and just be me until my mid to late 30s is when, I was able to just say, oh, well, this is what I like to do. And it feels more purposeful and of a calling when I share it with others. So, childhood, I guess, to like 35. But in between then, perhaps I was just living my major arcana, right? From the point of innocence to the point of self awareness, like, oh, life. So the spiritual journey was always very present, um, only until my mid to late 30s, I was able to be in a place of full acceptance, I guess you can say.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing, first of all. I love how, even though your family subscribed to this certain like religious label, that there were like these undercurrents of like healing and spirituality and these moments that are so clear to you that you can remember of like, wow, like it planted this seed and this seed. And I had a very similar journey too, where, I had psychic gifts that were activated when I was young and they just weren't supported in the environment I was in. And I kind of just lived like this very earth-based life. And I sort of joke that I went from like party girl to priestess because uh like
I
I
love
just
that.
explored all of these other things. Yeah. And so it was in my 30s as well. And so you've been such an inspiration to me because you have this business and you have this amazing partner and these beautiful children, and you're serving all of these roles. Like you're a mom and you're like this like goddess, and you have all of these things happening, and how do you do it all?
I really don't know. Sometimes I ask myself the same thing and like, how do I do it all? Some days I feel like I'm just killing it and I'm on top of everything. And some days I'm like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I really doing it? I know, Megan, you probably go through that too, just being a mom and an entrepreneur and a business owner, and also just living this life of being observant and connected to the collective consciousness in your own. I think it's one foot in front of the other. That's how I do it. And then also getting myself to a place where I can just be. Um, I think, quite honestly, the reason why I'm so connected and feel purpose with restorative wellness and helping people slow down and helping people reflect is because I was lacking that for most of my adult life, in a space of putting other people first, Libra rising, putting, other people before myself, putting other people's needs before my own needs, from a place of nourishment, from a place of helping others before helping myself. And I actually woke up to that when I was in, speaking in terms of tarot, when I was in my tower moment. And it was like, oh my gosh, everything's falling apart, everything's burning to the ground. And like, what are the things that I can do to not make any wrong moves, because I have a lot at stake being a mom of three, right? Like, so it brought me to what does it mean to be in harmony with yourself? What are the chakras, and what does it mean to have them moving and working properly? Like, what what is the current planetary alignment right now, because things feel really heavy, and what are the things that I can do to conduct myself in a way that brings honor to myself and my values, right? So I dove into meditation. I dove into astrology in a more like structured way. Finding mentors and peers who are actualized. I think that was like a big eye opener for me. There's this Zen proverb that says, when hiking up the mountain, ask help from the person hiking down the mountain rather than whoever's hiking up with you, right? So I found the experts in their certain spaces, and I just learned and received, and I'm still learning and receiving. I think I'll spend my whole life trying to understand my own natal chart better than I knew it the day before, and live this whole life with even so much more to learn after I'm gone, right? I think I just put one foot in front of the other very humbly, and I give myself the time to rest and the time to meditate and the time to reflect. I think that could be the most powerful thing people can give themselves, is a quiet space and a quiet mind. Because when we're moving from that as the foundation, we don't have to rush. We don't have to feel overwhelmed because our mind is quiet and we are operating from our more authentic self rather than who's operating from survival or just making it through or feeling rushed. And that's all I knew. So I'm really grateful that I experienced those things so I can be here, a humble learner. I don't know everything. I just share and teach what has helped me, with anyone who's interested, and just keeping one foot in front of the other and not being overwhelmed by the labels as well. That can be overwhelming, right? Like, oh my gosh, when I hear someone else say all the things I do, that's when I start to be like, whoa, that's kind of overwhelming. But I'm
Totally.
doing it, right? I think too, I think I'm at this point in my life, I'm 42, I'll be 43. That's just even wild to even say that, because like I just don't feel that way. I sometimes I feel like I'm forever gonna feel like I'm a 22-year-old, right? But when I think about all of the things that we do and how can it all get done, I just go back to nature. And nature is abundant. There's always things happening. There's trees dripping with fruit. There's water flowing. When nature is free and when nature is rested and nourished, when the trees are watered and they're in the proper soil and they get the right sunlight that they're deserving of, then they're abundant. Um, I don't think that I was raised that way. It was like, you can have this or that, or somebody needs to win and somebody needs to lose. It's like this idea of, I don't know, Darwin has theories like that, survival of the fittest. But I believe that we all survive when we're moving from our heart and we're well connected and we understand what the connections are in our lives and how we can be compassionate, like Mother Nature is, right?
Yeah, that's so profound. I mean, you said so many good things, Marsha. And I love how, you really advocate for just this quiet mind. And this quiet mind is like what allows us to make these big changes and these big moves because we're present in the step without feeling so overwhelmed by what's to come. And I also love how you shared about how when we're in harmony with nature and when we see Mother Nature as this mirror of what's possible for us, how it just creates a lot of relief. Or I'd love for you to talk a little bit about sound healing and how
Yeah.
that supports like a quiet mind.
What I love about sharing sound, um, I guess back it up to my tower moment in my life. It was 2014, right? So I realized I needed to get certain things in alignment. And one of them was my mind. I used to be in a space where I would take so much in. I would have so much mental overstimulation, lots of worry. I've got 3 planets in Virgo in the 12th house. And
A lot.
my Saturn is in the 12th house, and Saturn is what we need to be responsible for, right? So if the 12th house is connected to our intuition and our mental health, right? Saturn was very present in my Saturn return, and I knew my biggest priority after going through a very high conflict separation and divorce was my mind. So, in reeling that back in, I studied formal meditation at a Zen monastery close by, and it really helped me reel that in. Like I was frozen, battling guilt, mom guilt. Like, do I work too much? I'm not spending time with my kids. Oh my gosh, this and this. And it was so silly. One of the shifus was like, that's a choice. Guilt doesn't even exist. You choose guilt. And I was like, oh my gosh, I choose guilt. That's it. Like I could just free myself from that weight. And she was like, yeah, just strengthen your mind. So meditation became something that I really needed to survive. It wasn't like, oh, this is fun for me. It was like I need to carve out this space so I can just put one foot in front of the other. The sound came after meeting a friend at a LA art show. And he had these sound bowls. It was just one of those synchronistic moments where we were invited by one friend to, support this art installation of meditating to the dictators of the world and sending them love and peace. And I was like, okay, I can dig that. And the first time I touched a sound bowl was there because they just handed a sound bowl and they're like, oh, you can like, use the sound bowl when we're walking in for this performative art piece. And then made friends with someone who actually was a distributor of sound bowls. He said, come over, see my sound bowls. And I was like, okay. It was far out. It was like 2 hours away. We went over, and he was like, I think you need a sound bowl. And I'm like, okay, that's so nice of you, but I don't have several grand for a sound bowl, like to just, you know. And he was like, that's okay, just take it. I entrust that you're going to do something amazing with this in your practice. Like, I just know. So then that was really weird. And I was like, well, okay, let's just give it a whirl. And all of a sudden, these doors opened where it was like, oh, that sounds really nice. Can you show me how to calm down and relax? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got the sound bowl. Want to hear it? And the beauty about the sound is that instantly the frequency drops you in to just submit to clearing your mind, right? Like when we sit down with just a seated meditation, sometimes as a meditator, you're like, am I meditating? Am I not meditating? Like, and then like thoughts come in and out, and you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to think about that. I'm supposed to be meditating, right? But when we have a sound bowl, the sound instantly drops in to your body and to your ears. And I even think that's the first, I think I've read that's the first sense that humans have is the sound, right? Because we all omit a certain sound and frequency. So there's this interesting feeling of just coming home when listening to a sound bowl. And started with one sound bowl, then slowly gained another. And all of a sudden, these opportunities came up to play sound for people and places. And, one thing led to another where someone would say, okay, how much would you charge if you did sound for us for this? And it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred, maybe this, I don't know. Like we were just kind of like figuring it out. Myself, not just myself, my partner who was a really great friend at that time, and we had our relationship kind of blossom not just because of the sound, but just where we were in our life. We just wanted to show up for each other, to support each other, to be well. And all of a sudden, one sound bowl turned to two, to three, to four, to five, to I don't know, seven now. And we show up. We show up. We don't really advertise that much, but it's kind of like referral based. Somebody will be like, "Wow, that was really great. Can you do a sound experience at our space?" And let's see, we started in 2019 and now we are in 2022, almost done, on the corner, on the cusp of 2023. But now we do sound meditations for lots of companies, resorts, luxury spas, CEOs, and we bring restorative wellness to them so they can have the opportunity to get quiet with themselves. What I love about sound is that there's not really that much speaking needed or talking needed. Like, I'm not the teacher in that moment. The sound bowl is the teacher. The sound bowl is vibrating sound, and the sound bowls are a symbol of emptiness, and what can happen from a space of emptiness and listening to yourself. There's this interesting concept that I think of often is whatever makes a bowl useful is the emptiness of the bowl. So you can use it to put something in, whether it's a soup bowl or a sound bowl or whatever. The value of a bowl is the emptiness. And like even sometimes when I play sound, I can feel, the person who is receiving the sound, I can feel a lightness, coming from them, because whatever thoughts that they're having in their mind, it's kind of just swishing around and cleaning out, if that makes any sense. And when that happens, they come back to their solitude. Whatever messages they need to hear, they hear it from their own intuition, their own guides, their own just foundation of whatever message they need to hear. And I don't really have to do anything with it. I'm just holding space.
What was really amazing is how everything has just been in alignment for you. It's like one thing led you here, which led you here, which led you to this person, which led you to this person. And it's been this beautiful unfolding, which I feel like is so important for us to know, that we don't have to have our whole journey lined up, that it's just like we follow these breadcrumbs. And like when we're in alignment, when we're in flow, things happen in this really synchronistic way. And it's been amazing to watch your business blossom. And it's, I love to what you shared about the usefulness of the bowl being the emptiness, because it reminds me of how we're simply a vessel of God or source consciousness, and that when we show up, like you said, it's like things happen through us, which creates so much less pressure. And
Yeah. I
yeah,
love that. Yeah. I
right.
even feel lighter you just saying that. Like I was just like,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
exactly. It's like, oh, I just have to show
Yeah, I
up.
just have to show up and just be me, like my unafflicted, rested, nourished, joyous me. And if we start at that place, then we're open to the miracles that just want to happen in front of us.
Yeah, and I have a funny story of, when I got to see your sound experience
Oh
about
yeah.
my daughter. And it was like one of those things where she's 2 and she was having her moment and she did not want to be in the room. She wanted to be a part of everything. And so they were sitting there playing the most beautiful sound bowls. And like Aria, my daughter's just like running around screaming. And I'm just like, okay, like what's happening? This is all part of the experience. So what do you do when like you're in an experience and like you're supposed to hold that space of like peacefulness and there's all this like chaos around you?
I think it's just being present and not wanting to control the situation, because whatever happens in that moment is supposed to happen. I was really impressed you being the mama and not feeling it like you weren't tight in that moment. Like I've experienced other moms and they're like, oh my gosh, my child's not behaving, this and this. You were just like really patient and calm and organic with the whole thing. And I even I even just try to drop into like, oh, what is the message or the lesson we're all supposed to experience here? And I think in that particular sound bath that we shared with you, it was like, oh yeah, there's always moving pieces, and it's okay to remain flexible on what's happening, right? Like, especially when we're sharing space with a lot of different people and energy, especially a 2-year-old rambunctious, like Taurus little one who's like, I'm in a new space. What's this? I want to touch this. Like, ooh, crystals. Ooh, this, you know? Um, and I think too, in that moment, it was also the awareness of having a reconnection of like with it with our all of our own inner children, you know. And then also too, I'm like, oh, Aria is just an extension of your excitement in physical form, right? Because like she's your continuation, right? So you were just also excited in a different way, and I like that's how I saw it. But I Anthony and I were really impressed. We were like, wow, Megan's such a great mom. She just comes into it with this like calmness of like it's all good. And I really learned about your motherhood that day.
Thanks. I mean, I definitely do not always get it right. It's funny because, with emotional regulation, it's like you can't teach emotional regulation unless you've got it down. Like, it's a lifelong learning practice.
Yeah,
But yeah, I love that you shared about how it brought up our inner child and how it brought up all of these things. And, I feel like it's important for us to know that we don't always have to be perfect. And like you said, we don't have to control everything because I'm sure, you're a mompreneur like me, and we do in-home one-on-one sessions, virtual sessions, and host things. And, you're always going to have like a child or something in the background. And like, I think there's just so much limitations that we have fears of like, can I show up if it's not perfect? And like, absolutely. I just had,
absolutely. Yes.
yeah. So I'd love for you to speak on that.
Yeah, I had a session right before we got on our call today where, she's a new mama, 4-month-old baby. She's nursing while we're having the session. Baby's crying, and I'm like, don't even worry. That sounds like white noise to me. Like I, I don't, and just to see her gratitude, she was like, oh my gosh, thank you. She felt like she could just let go and not feel like she had to be in control. And it was wonderful. I feel like that was a huge like I think that's a continuous life um message and lesson for me, being a Libra rising, wanting everything to be a little bit perfect. 3 planets in Virgo. Um, I do notice when I let go of things when I let go of wanting things to be perfect, for some reason, the universe likes to give me a cosmic joke and say, it's even better than whatever your idea of perfect was. So I've been just leaning into that a little bit more. Like, there's always some type of message or learning in every situation. And when I let go of wanting to be perfect, I'm actually always pleasantly surprised for something that's even above whatever my idea was.
That's so true. Yeah, there's so much power in letting go because it's like in our limited perspectives, we might think like, oh, this is the thing. But like, if we get that thing, it may be like totally way not what we wanted, or have like all these other things attached to it that we'd have to deal with. And so it really does create this trust of like having to really let go and know that like when you're in alignment with the universe, like we're always going to get exactly what we need at exactly the right time. And I think there's such this power that you have in restorative wellness and the work that you're doing and getting people to that place of calmness and being centered, because that's where we can hear that step to be in alignment. And it's like when we're so fragmented and we're all over the place and we're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to show up here and I have to be perfect at this, it's just, it's impossible. Like nobody can live up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have been really tripping out because Friday I had the awesome opportunity to have a tarot session with corporate leaders from Lululemon. They're like, can you do a tarot session with us? And I'm like, wait, a tarot session? Like, you want a tarot session for your company function or meeting, or like, what do you mean? I provide restorative wellness work for companies and groups, but it's usually like a meditation. And then I feel like astrology is great because we can look at communication styles with Mercury in the chart and all that. But I'm like, oh, so you want to do tarot? Okay, cool. Let's figure out how we can do this. Stepping into something too that it was like, okay, well, I haven't done this before, but like, how can I make it very presentable for a company? So I put together slides on a Canva deck, and we had everyone drop in, for like everybody got their own little 5-minute session, and we did a collective. But it was really cool, me learning that just to drop in and surrender to the moment to see how I can best offer, right? So we actually would pull the cards, and then I had a Canva presentation of the card that they did pull with the keywords. And I was amazed that, first off, this company is asking for restorative wellness by way of intuition and tarot, which it was so healing to the younger me, because I was sometimes told, like, oh, what are you doing that for? Is that evil? Is it weird? Is it, witchy? And I'm feeling like, oh, I don't know. I just like it, But to see the practicality and the obvious need that people have to drop in to intuitive practices, I was just blown away. I think I'm still recalibrating from that experience. Like, wow, that was really helpful. So, all in all, the cards were right. They always are. They're never wrong. There's always some type of insight that each person gets, and it felt really good being able to offer that to them. Um, and then also, it made me really excited about where we are right now. Knowing that the generation who are, in Gen Z, they have Pluto and Sag. They're about this stuff. They're like, let's dive in, let's learn, let's look at the truth. How do we find it?
Yeah, that is amazing, Marsha. And what I really am always like so inspired by is how you're like this bridge builder between the spiritual community and the corporate community. And you're always like, I'm doing this now, or I met this person, or now I added this, and like this constant creatrix energy. But you have a way of doing it where you can bring this really beautiful pearl and like make it understandable and grounded for people that are just like kind of entering this type of area of interest. And so, what would you say to someone that is on this path and maybe they're in the corporate world and they want to sort of branch out? Like, what are some things that they can do? And what do you suggest if maybe they want to start their own business, or they want to see how they can maybe support and like team? Like, you have so much expertise on this topic.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, thank you. I think it's about looking at, if somebody's in the corporate world and they have an interest or a passion, a purpose for, these really metaphysical, occult type things, to just know that all of their skills that have brought them to where they are, they're all going to be useful, right? And so for me, I was in the corporate fashion and business world for 25 years. And my heart would always want to come back to sharing a reading with somebody that I worked with. Or if we were about to hire somebody, I'm like, oh, when's their birthday? I'm just so curious. They would even ask me to do hiring for, new stores or the company that I worked with. And they're like, you have such a love for people. We know you're going to be able to find the right person. I'd always have this joke, and I'd be like, no interviews needed. Just give me the birth info. I'll give you all the things. It was funny, like joking, but then also it does come in useful when it's about putting a team together. But for anyone who's interested in understanding the metaphysical and the spiritual world, even though they may be getting a paycheck from the corporate world, it's about um, looking at everything and figuring out how and why they all meet each other, if that makes any sense. I think with my background, it helps me to offer something that I was seeking in the corporate space, but now I can meet a need of sharing the importance of what it is to be fully nourished before you go into work, what it is to be fully rested before you go into work, what it means to take some time, to take some breaths before you're entering a really tense business meeting, right? We're always going to operate so much better when we're nourished. And I think something that's a really great visual for that is, a tree that is like oozing, dripping with abundant fruit. It's only doing that because it received the nourishment that it needed. It received healthy soil. It received hydration from, water, sunlight, even the weather. Like when all those things meet, you can just give abundantly. Um, so if somebody's interested in, pivoting or seeking on how they can fill a space in the corporate world, there's always space. It's like it's just so abundant, and to look at their own personal experience. It's interesting in doing this work, Megan, having all the clients, like we just have the coolest job ever because we get to meet so many interesting people. Um, the last session I had, I was like, you do know I will never have this conversation with anyone else because you're just that interesting, it's true. But then to look at all, like every single cause and condition that has brought into you to where you are now, and that is always going to be something in your toolkit. That's what I think. And, some people, I don't know, some people are like, well, I used to do this and now I do this. That was a waste of time. It's never a waste of time. All of those things come in so handy, when you're making them meet and all together, because it's just like an astrology chart. Every single person is immensely multidimensional. Even if they have a stellium and like the same thing, there's still so much more multidimensional aspects to every single person. And I think that's what makes it so cool just to be in community with people because we all have something very special and unique to give.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's why I started this show.
I think it's a great idea. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I can't wait to see all the people in your circle.
Oh, I know. And you and I both have Venus and Gemini. So I feel like we have this love and this curiosity for people and for building community and what we can learn. And I really loved how you touched on how nothing is a waste. I mean, in my personal journey, I have 20 years of customer service experience, over 10 years of nonprofit experience. I worked for another spiritual teacher. I had 2 attempts at like being fully an entrepreneur, and then I had to stop. I had to go back to work. I had to learn more. And it's like, all of it brought me to this point. I was thinking about that yesterday when I was writing an email, and even just the way I'm able to like write it out, or I have all of these what is it, the standard operating procedures. It's like I have all of that knowledge of how to run a successful spiritual business, even if the content that I'm delivering is very multidimensional. I've built that structure from being very involved for most of my life in 3D careers. So I think it's really important that we really start to look at how there's so much more to what we're doing than what we think it is. Like we're getting so many skills and building on that. But I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about how people can find you and the work that you're doing now, because you're doing so many amazing things. If someone is like, Marsha's so awesome, like I want to learn more about her, I want
Oh
to,
my gosh.
what do they do?
I have this love-hate relationship with Instagram because even the other day I found another like trolley creeper who's trying to be me and like giving readings out. I just feel like that's just the nature of that anyway. But you can find me on Instagram, Marsha Pacificar, Marsha. Pacificar. You can also find me on restplay.today. That is our website where we share all things restorative wellness. And I find that the things that we do, what I feel like I contribute and share to the world is how to rest and how to play. It's that simple. Um, we have other people who teach how to work hard and how to grind, but I think I'm really passionate about sharing the opposite, how to rest and how to play and how to nourish. So you can find me on restplay.today, Marsha Pacificar on Instagram. Currently, I provide astrology readings, and I like to call it self-care astrology. The astrology that I share always comes back to self-care and how we can show up better for ourselves. Um, Also, too, I have rolling tarot collectives just to get together with other peers who are interested in learning the art and the symbolism of, you know, the deck and how to form a relationship with your own intuition in a practical way. So those are the things I offer, and that's how you can find me.
Thanks, Marsha. So I will definitely link all that in the bio. And I definitely want to learn more about that tarot collective. That sounds fun. And, I just love how intentional you are about like, I want to teach rest. I want to teach play. And I'm going to really focus on that. And even like astrology is such a huge, huge like area, and you're like, I'm going to focus on the self-care. So I just feel like that's so powerful to really find where you shine and what's needed and like go all in. And I feel like that's why you just continue to be so blessed in everything that you're doing.
Aw,
You're so intentional. So you're definitely
thank
welcome
you.
back anytime. It's been such an amazing
Oh, this was so
conversation.
much fun.
I
I
know,
loved
isn't it
it.
fun?
I'm so excited for you and having this great idea to satisfy your Venus and Gemini and getting to know people, but then also being able to share that with others. Because whatever you and I are going through, other people are going through, and they might pick up a little pearl of wisdom for themselves and however they want to, practice it. So that's wonderful. I'm so grateful and honored to be asked for this opportunity to share.
Aw, well, thank you so much for the amazing work you're doing, and thank you for being my friend.
Oh my gosh, thank you, thank you. I'd love to share another time and quite often. I just when you and I get together, we can talk for hours.
Oh, I
It's
know.
just a given.